Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the Hip Senior Books. Our episode of this podcast brings together authors with their books so you guys can relate to them a little bit more when you're choosing which books you want to read. Today, we have Cynthia Hayes on the podcast. She is a cancer survivor. She is a formal journalist and Harvard-trained management consultant. And Cynthia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about the Big Ordeal.
So you wrote this book because you wanted to bring help to people, for people to understand the emotional ordeal and experience that they're going through while dealing with cancer, right?
Yeah, so I was really surprised after my diagnosis just what a roller coaster of emotions I went through. And I was further surprised in talking with other people that they also went through many of the same emotions, despite the differences in their cancers and their personal histories and how recent or long ago their diagnosis was. And it just got me asking a lot of questions that my doctors couldn't answer, and that I ended up using all of those journalistic and management consulting skills of asking hundreds of people and then synthesizing the information and trying to hopefully tell a good story. So I ended up interviewing over 100 cancer patients and loving caregivers and understanding sort of what the typical sequence of emotions was. And then I interviewed all sorts of medical experts to try and understand why we feel that way and why it is so predictable that we're going to feel that way. And then, of course, understanding with the help of psychotherapists and exercise physiologists and all sorts of other experts, what to do about it. How do you cope? How do you get through it? And of course, we're all very different people, and we all have different emotional expressions and the intensity with which we feel emotions and the freedom with which they get expressed. But there are some pretty standard emotions that we all experience because of physical changes in our body as a result of the presence of cancer, as a result of surgery or chemotherapy, immunotherapy. And those physiological changes that happen at the cellular level get reflected in the chemicals that wash over our brain and therefore influence our emotions. And it was just such a refreshing thing to understand that it wasn't me. It wasn't a character flaw that I was weepy in the shower on certain days of the chemo cycle, that it was driven by real physiological changes that were explainable and addressable if you only knew where to look and how to find the help you need.
You know, I think people need to accept emotions as part of their life, part of their life, regardless of whether you have cancer or not, right? If you're having a day and you want to go cry in the shower, then go by means, go cry in the shower. But if your body's going through something so intense like that, you know, being a little more forgiving and understanding of yourself and saying it's okay for this. I think your book definitely opens that door for them to say, hey, you know, I can do this. I can cry if I want to cry. You know, the old song, it's my party. I can cry if I want to. You know?
That's right. That's right. Well, and I think that, you know, as a society, we're not real good at talking about emotions. We're a little bit better thanks to everyone going through COVID and everyone feeling the anxiety and depression. But I think that in general, you know, if you break your leg, you feel perfectly fine saying, hey, doctor, my leg hurts. And they give you something to help you with the pain.
Right.
But we're not real good about saying, hey, doctor, my heart aches, my brain hurts. What can you do to help me? And because we don't know that it's okay to express those things, we don't know where to look for and ask for help. And there are, of course, so many resources out there for patients, for loving caregivers, for, you know, family members and friends, but we don't know that it's okay to ask. And so part of what I hope this book does is sort of validate individuals' experience that, oh yeah, I feel that way. Another patient felt that way. It must be okay to feel that way. And therefore I can ask my doctor, what do I do because I feel this way?
I love that those type of things are coming to the forefront these days, because I know 10 years ago when I got divorced, you know, I put myself in therapy so I would be healthy moving forward with things. I didn't want to bring past baggage, as they say, you know, along for the ride. I wanted to bring, you know, a small backpack, but not a huge suitcase. I wanted to learn from those experiences. And so I put myself in therapy, and my therapist used to say, well, how does that make you feel? And I don't know. I'm not good at labeling my emotions. I was like, well, how am I supposed to feel? And then just say it, and then I'll just agree with you. Because I really did not know how to therapy. I didn't know any of those things, and I probably still don't. But I think a lot of people out there are probably the same. They don't know how to label those emotions.
I think that's right. I think that as young children and now as adults, we don't really talk about our emotions enough to be able to identify what it is we're feeling. And then
Certainly, Gen X people don't.
well, and then in the cancer world, there's this layer of, well, you have to stay strong, you have to be positive, that becomes, almost toxic because in addition to physically having to deal with all of this, now you're telling me I have this emotional hurdle I have to, jump over as well, that I have to smile through, the chemotherapy pain. I have to, grin and bear it because that's what is being asked of me. And that just it makes the challenge that much greater. Nobody wants to listen to somebody whining every day, but as a patient, sometimes you need to whine. Sometimes you need to say, my whole world has just been shattered by this diagnosis. My expectations, not only of what I'm going to do tomorrow, but whether or not I'm going to be able to go on vacation in 6 months, whether or not I'm going to be alive in 6 months or 6 years, all of those things have been shattered. So give me a moment here. Let me feel this pain. Let me grieve over this loss. And oh, by the way, my hormones are wackadoo right now. My normal brain chemistry has gone on a rampage. Just give me a little time to adjust. Let me take this moment to cry in the shower if I want to. So.
That's awesome. Now, when you were doing research, let me ask you, the 100 people, how did you find them? Were they social media? Was it?
It was a little bit of everything. It was mostly word of mouth. I started obviously talking with, friends of friends and friends of friends of friends, but then got connected to a number of different medical centers, and through those different medical centers branched out, got connected to, sort of put the word out to everybody that I knew. And, cancer stories started coming in over the transom. Unfortunately, 40% of us will get cancer at some point in our lives.
Right.
And the other 60% of us will take care of those we love. So everybody has a cancer story to share. And I thought that was one of the surprises along the way, was just how many stories there are out there. And of course, everybody's story is different, but there are definitely common threads to them all.
Did you find that people were leery about telling their story at first because they didn't want to appear as whiners or stuff like that? Or were they eager to tell, or both?
Yeah, I think there was some of each. And I think that many people felt that, even in telling their stories, that they had to maintain that, everything is under control. I got this attitude. But as they talked, and as, I was able to share my story and open up to them about what I was thinking and feeling, it allowed them to feel a little bit more comfortable sharing their story. And inevitably, people would say at the end of the conversation, wow, I feel so much better for having shared my story. I feel relieved to know that I was not the only one feeling this, but I also feel good that my story might help somebody else along the way. So I think it was a growth experience for those who participated on both sides. Obviously, it was part of my healing process to come to a greater understanding about why I felt the way I felt. But it was also part of my healing process to be able to give back and to know that what I learned from my experience can help others along the way.
So when someone finishes reading your book and they put it down and they reflect on it for that few moments after you finish reading the book, you're like, that was such a good book, or wow, the ending of that just really stunk, or whatever the ending of your book. What is that initial reflection that you hope people get from your book?
I hope what people get is a sense that, well, I guess I really am okay. And whether it's, I guess I really am okay because here I am facing a terminal diagnosis, and what I am feeling is typical of somebody who's facing a terminal diagnosis, or it's, I'm okay because I know that I'm going to get to a point of resilience. I haven't physically healed yet, but I know that the emotional healing is going to come eventually, because look at all of these people who have gone before me that have emotionally healed. Or maybe it's, I'm okay because I'm still at the beginning of this process and I'm not going to read each one of these chapters. But right now, having read up to chapter 2, I know that what I'm feeling right now is appropriate for where I am in this process. And I do encourage people to not read too far ahead. You don't want to scare yourself any more than you need to. And one of the reasons why many people find support groups so challenging is the idea that somebody else might bring their negative experiences and their negative emotions to that group. And now I'm burdened with my emotions and your emotions at the same time. That's too overwhelming. So I encourage people to sort of read as they're going through the experience, or if they are finished with treatment and still wondering, oh my God, what the hell just happened to me? I feel like I was hit by a truck. To read this to help them sort of process the experience and understand what to do with it and how to recover from the experience. Okay. And there are a couple of chapters in there for people who are dealing with recurrent disease and end-of-life issues. And I encourage readers to skip right over those if it's not relevant, or to go back to them when they are relevant. As I said, we don't need to overwhelm ourselves with more than we need to know, but it's really helpful to know that what you're experiencing is typical of this phase in the process of dealing with cancer.
Right. I love the cover of it. Show us the book and the cover.
Here's the book, The Big Ordeal. And, it really is about the psychological turmoil. It's not just emotional, but it's cognitive. The brain controlling how much energy we have and how much energy we bring to conversations and life and our work. It is everything that goes on in our bodies together. And of course, modern medicine tends to separate the brain from the body, but it's all one. And if there's something going on in the body, you can be sure it's affecting the brain. And similarly, if things are different in the brain, it's going to affect the body as well.
So not only would this be a wonderful gift for yourself if you're going through this process or you've been through this process, but also for somebody to buy for somebody that has just been diagnosed with cancer of some form, to show them that you care, that you want them to be successful in their treatment and also in the emotional and mental outcome as they go along the process as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's also very helpful for a loving care partner to try and understand what the patient you love is going through. So much of what makes relationships challenging during any type of high stress environment, but particularly when there are all of these physiological changes that are causing emotion, is that we tend to keep just a little bit of secrets. We all do. I don't want to tell you, I don't want to burden you with everything that I am afraid of today. So I'm only going to tell you this much when there's really this much. And if I do that on a regular basis, you don't know that I'm thoroughly freaked out about my cancer. So you're not being as supportive as you would be if you knew the depths of my despair. So you might say something that irritates me, but I can't say anything back to you. And so this wedge grows in our relationship. And I think that many loving care partners really would benefit from taking a read and understanding, oh, that's what he's thinking. Now I understand why he's responding the way he's responding. I get his fears and therefore be able to be a little bit more supportive and maybe a little bit more honest in communication with those that you love.
Yeah, so, even your friends, right? So
yeah,
siblings,
absolutely.
Stuff like that. It's so
absolutely.
So is this a one-off book, or are there more books in the future for you? Where do we go from there?
Well, this is the first. There may be others, but no promises. But I hope that it is complete enough that it gives people the understanding and support that they need to get through cancer.
Well, Cynthia, it's a gorgeous book. It's a very meaningful subject. It's something that we're all going to, such a meaningful subject that everybody eventually is going to have to deal with, whether it's their friends, their family members, maybe a coworker. So thank you so much for writing this book, for being part of the Hip Senior Books and helping me spread the word to get it out there for people. And I wish you all the very best success with it.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. So thank you.
Everybody, if you're watching this through YouTube and you're not seeing it, head over to thehipseniorbooks.com. I'll have it all linked below or above or to the right. And definitely click through and purchase her book for somebody that, whether it's you or whether it's a loved one or a family member that could definitely use this book. Again, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.